So the next type of selection structure that I'm going to be teaching you is called a multiple selection. Okay, so previously it was just an if else. Okay, this time inside a program you can actually place more than one if statement inside your program. Okay, so multiple selection is used when there are multiple conditions involved, that there are multiple questions that you want to ask inside your program. So this is when you use multiple selection. Okay, so multiple selection can be implemented using any of the three ways. We have linear nested if statement, non-linear nested if statement, and also switch statement. So I'll go into details of each one. So the first one will be linear nested if statement. So this type of selection is used when there are multiple conditions based on the same subject. So this is called a nested if else, meaning that, okay, if you take a look on the side here, okay, we have more than one conditions that we need to evaluate. Okay, and each of these conditions somehow relates to one another. All right, this is why it says condition based on the same subject. Okay, so let's say we evaluate this condition. If it's true, it will execute this statement. If it's false, it will move on to the next else if. Okay, meaning that it will try and evaluate this condition. If it's true, it will go inside here, but if it's false, then it will move on to the next condition. Okay, so if this condition is true, it will execute the statement that is inside. But since all of these are false, okay, we also have an else statement whereby it will go inside here if each of the previous statements that were evaluated are false. Then it will go to the else statement. Okay, but actually the else statement is optional. Okay, you don't have to place an else statement every single time you do an if statement. Okay, so an else statement is optional. It will only be placed if you want to do something if these conditions are false. Okay, you will understand a bit more once I show you the examples. Okay, so let's try and take a look at this very simple question that I'm giving here. This program allows user to enter their grade where it will display appropriate message based on these choices. So let's say the user enters A. So if the user enters A, the message would be displayed as excellent. If B, it will be displayed as good. If C, it will be displayed as pass. And if it's not A, B, or C, it will display fail. So we know that when the user enters the grade, it could be A, it could be B, it could be C, it could be D, E, F, G, whatever grade that they put in. So based on those grades, we need to decide which message will be displayed. So let's try and draw a flow chart. So whenever we want to solve a certain problem, it is always best that we start with the flow chart first, okay, or whatever algorithm you want to do. So let's say I start with a simple flow chart. Okay, once I've done that, the first thing we do is, okay, since we want to allow the user to enter their grade, okay, we're gonna need an input. So for input, we'll write read grade. Okay, so like that. So based on this grade, okay, so basically this grade can either be A, it can be B, it can be C, it can be D, it can be until Z. Okay, whatever grade you want to put in. All right. So based on this grade, the computer can decide what message will be displayed. So since we need to decide something, we need to do decision, right? So whenever there's decision, we need to have selection. So with selection, the shape of it would be a diamond. Okay, so inside here you put your question, what you want to ask. So if the grade that the user put in is A, it will display it as excellent. Okay, so you can write here, if the grade is equals to A, okay, since this is a char, right, character, okay, could be true or false. So if the grade entered as A, okay, what message you want to display? I want to display excellent. So display excellent. Okay, so that is that. Okay, so if it's false, of course we have another decision, which would be B. So if the user entered B, grade equals to B, okay, so if it's true, it will display good. Okay, so if it's false again, we have another option, which would be C. So if the grade is entered as C, okay, if it's true, it will display pass. All right. If it's not A, if it's not B, and if it's not C, okay, all the other letters would be displayed as fail. So this is an if with a condition. This is an, so we have if, we would have an else if here, we have another else if. If all of this fails, we would have an else here. Okay, so if it's not A, B, or C, okay, it will display, as we all know, else doesn't have a condition. No condition. Okay, so display fail. Okay, so after that, there's nothing here, so it would end, right? We are still not finished. What happens after it displays excellent? Okay, we'll definitely not go here. We will definitely go to the end. So the same thing goes here as well. Okay, so this is the flow chart that we do to solve this particular problem. Okay. Okay, now, so let's say I give you these two questions right here. All right, so if the grade is keyed in as B, so we know that, let's say the grade that is keyed in by the user as B. So if the user put in B, will this be true? No. Okay, so when it's not true, it will go down to false. So it will check, is grade equals to B? Yes. So once that's true, it will go inside here and it will display good. All right, so in the end, what is the output display on the screen? It will display good. All right, but okay, if the user now, instead of keying in B, it will key in E. If the user enters E, will this be true? No. And then it will go down here. Will this be true? Again, no. Then it will go down here. Is E equals to C? No as well. So it will still go down here. Since not this, not this, not this, it will display fail. So in the end, okay, it will display fail. Okay, so this is the solution to this particular program. Okay, so since we have done the flowchart, okay, we can continue to write our program. So the first thing that we need, of course, for every program, we need to put in the preprocessor directives, include IO stream, that's the most basic one, using namespace std, and then we have our in main, okay, open curly braces, so in the end you will have a return 0, which means that's the end of the program. So on top here, we're going to write our program. So as we've seen in the flowchart, the first thing we need is an input. Okay, so when we do an input, of course, we need to have a prompt message. So tell the user to enter grade. Okay, so once you do that, then the user will be able to key in the grade as the input. So grade. So we know that since grade, we need to accept letters, so we know that the grade will be char, right? So once we have received the grade, then we can check the grade using if. So if grade is equals to A, okay, open it up, okay, open up curly braces, close your curly braces. So inside here, if the grade is A, what do you want it to do? So I want it to display excellent. So display is C out, excellent. Okay, so if that is false, then we have another condition. If the grade is keyed in as B, Okay, open your curly braces, so it will display good. Okay, then if that fails as well, okay, if it's not A or if it's not B, then we have another condition, else if grade equals to C, then we have open up curly braces, so inside here it will display pass. Okay, so if it's not A, B or C, all the other letters would be an else. Okay, so inside here we will display fail. Okay, so basically this is how we solve this particular problem. Now if you take a look at this program, there's one thing that I want to tell you. Okay, sorry, wrong spelling. Okay, now if you take a look here, for every if else I put in curly braces. Now curly braces will indicate that whatever that is inside here will be executed if this condition is true. Okay, so whatever that is inside here will be executed if this condition is true. Whatever that is inside here, okay, will be executed if this condition is true, as well as whatever that is inside here will be executed if this else is true. Okay, now this curly braces is actually optional as well. Okay, so if you don't want to put in the curly braces, it's fine, you can omit it out. Okay, it will still be correct. So if I do this, okay, you can still do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, now why is this acceptable? Because there's only one line that can be executed if this condition is true. But if you want to put in more than one thing inside here, let's say hello, okay, see out, hi. Okay, if there are more than one line that you want to execute if this condition is true, you cannot not have a curly braces. Okay, so if there are more than one line, you need to put in your curly braces like so. Okay, so if there are more than one line, all of this will be executed if this condition is true. Okay, for these ones it's okay because there's only one line of code. All right, so that is the meaning behind the curly braces. Okay, so that is how you solve this particular problem. Okay, so if you take a look at this question, it says that write a program that check and display the current status of your ITM students based on the amount of credit hours that they entered. Give an error message if the user entered invalid credit hours. So the status of the students are either part-time or full-time. So if they are part-time student, the credit hours would be less than 12. If they are full-time student, then the credit hour will be between 12 and 24. So before we can actually check what status they are, whether part-time or full-time, we need to ask for their name first. So if you take a look at the console there, it asks for their name, the full name. So we need to prompt the user to enter the full name. So we need to write C out, enter full name. Then to get the full name, we can't just write say in name. Please remember that, because this will only get one word. So since we want to get the whole sentence, we need to write cin.getLine. Get line bracket cin name. Okay. So since the name is the data type of string, so we write here string name. Okay. Then after that, the next input that we need is enter credit hours. So C out, enter credit hour. And then this is C in. You can put in anything that we want. So let's say I put in C hour. Okay, so this data is integer. So I'll write here int C hour. Okay, and then after that, once we got the credit hour, then we can check for the student status. So since we want to make a decision, we want to check whether the credit hour is less than 12 or between 12 and 24 or more than that, we need to have a condition. So if the first thing we need to check is if the credit hour is entered less than 12, then the status would be part-time. So the question here is, or the condition here is, we want to check for the C hour, which is a credit hour. If it's less than 12, then we'll know that the student is a part-time student. So what we can do here is we can save our data. Then after that, after we have saved everything, then we can display everything out. So let us store the first thing, which is the status. All right, so we can just write status equals to part-time. All right, so once we've done that, so if the credit hour is less than 12, the status is part-time. And then we have another condition. If the credit hour is between 12 and 24, so we know that if it's between 12, of course, between 12 and 24, we know that it is more than equals to 12, and the credit hour will be less than equals to 24. So this is in between, okay, more than equals to 12, less than equals to 24. So if it's between that, the status is full-time. Okay, so it also says here, it will give an error message if the user entered invalid credit hour, meaning that if the credit hour is not less than 12, and if it is not between 12 and 24, it will all go to the else. So the else would be, okay, it will display the error message, so meaning that it will display, so display C out, invalid credit hour. Okay, so other than that, okay, we must remember, although it displays a invalid credit hour message, we must also save the data for status, because imagine, okay, imagine if the credit hour is entered as, let's say, 50. Of course, this is an error, right? So 50, of course, is not less than 12. It is not between 12 and 24. Then it will go inside else. So it will display invalid credit hour. Okay, the status will be stored as dash, because we want that if we want to output this out, okay, it will output the dash. All right, because otherwise it'll be empty, or you can't store any data there. So make sure that since you save this here, you save this here, so other than that, it must also be saved here. Okay, so since we have done everything, all the processes, then we can just output everything out. So C out, so we want to create some sort of design here, UITM Johor. Okay, and then end line. So the next line would be the name. So C out, so everything is an output. So name, where do we get the name? We got it from the name that we stored here. So name. Okay, and then next thing we have is we want to display the status. Okay, so if the status, if the credit hour, if the credit hour is less than 12, then it will display part-time. Okay, so if the credit hour is between 12 and 24, it will display full-time. If the credit hour is more than 24, okay, it will definitely display dash here. So any error will display dash there. So and L. Okay, since I have declared name, all right, I have declared C hour, I also need to declare my status. So since this will save a string, so we know that this will be declared as string. So we write status here. Okay, and this basically is how you solve this problem. So the next type of multiple selection that we have here is called nonlinear nested if statement. Okay, this is used when a particular condition contains multiple conditions of the same subject, meaning that inside an if statement, we can have some other ifs inside there as well. Okay, so we are not restricted to only one layer of if else. So if you have an if statement and you place more if statement inside that if, you can also do that. So this is known as nonlinear nested if statement. Okay, where we have one condition inside there will be more conditions that we need to evaluate. Okay, so for example, we have this if statement. If this condition is true, then we will go inside here and we will evaluate these other conditions that are found here. All right, so if this condition is false, then we won't go inside here and evaluate this. We will go to the next line instead, because all of these if statements are inside these curly braces, meaning that all of this will only be executed if this condition is true. Okay. Okay, now, so let's take a look at the next question. It says here that write a program that accepts the user's gender and age, display appropriate message based on their category. So as we all know, this question asks us to determine and display what kind of category of the user if they entered the gender and also the age. So before we do anything, we must determine first of all what are the output that are needed in order to solve this problem. So in this case, the first thing that we need, of course, would be the gender and also the age. So we would write read gender. Okay, so after we read the gender, we can read the age. So these are the two input that we need. Okay, so based on these two input, we can determine the category that needs to be displayed. So the first category that we need to check is the female kid. All right, so the female kid, in order to display this, we need to know what category that it is on. So it is on gender F, and also the age is less than 18. So in order to determine this, we need to do a decision. So we need an if. So the first thing that we check is the first one, which would be the gender. So the thing that we write here, so if the user enters the gender as F, okay, so if it's true, we know that we can't just straight away display female kid, because we also need to check for the age. So we know that inside this if, there's going to be another if. Okay, so the other if would be to check for the age. So if the age is less than 18, okay, so if it's true, then we can display female kid. Okay, so we display female kid. Now if it's false, so there's another condition, which is 18 and more. So if the age is 18 and more, meaning that it's more than equals to 18. So if it's true, we would display, okay, women. All right, so we've done this and we've done this. All right, so if it's false, what can we do? So we'll just leave it at that. All right, so the next category would be the male. So once we've done this, okay, we'll check for the male. So gender equals to M. All right, so if this is true, so the age we need to check is the same thing. If the age is less than 18, we know that we need to display male kid. Okay, so if the age is more than equals to 18, so we write here more than equals to 18. So if it's true, we would display men. Okay, all right, so since there's nothing else, okay, we can just end this. All right, but the flowchart is still not finished, because we need to know where these things lead to. We can't leave it hanging, so this will all lead to the end, okay, because we don't want it to go anywhere else. So this will go here, this will go here, this will go here, and if it's false, it will also go here. Okay, so let's say if the user, okay, so let's say I give you, okay, so let's say the user enters as M. Okay, so if the user enters as M, okay, and maybe the age it enters 25, okay, what category will be displayed? So will this be true? No. Okay, then it will go down here since this is false. Okay, so this is false, so it will go down here. So gender equals to M, yes, so it will go inside here. All right, so age less than 18, is that true? No, so it will go down here. So is age more than equals to 18? Yes, so in the end it will display men. All right, so depending on what the user enters for the gender and age, it will display different category. All right, so this is the flow chart for this particular problem. Okay, so now let's try and write the program since we have done the flow chart. All right, so we know that the first thing that we need is to input the gender and also the age. So prompt the user to enter the gender, so that would be cout, enter gender, and then so we can tell the user to input the gender, so C in gender. So we know that the gender can be entered as F or M or whatever, so we just need to write here char gender since it's a character. All right, so the next input would be the age, so cout enter age. Okay, so C in age, so we know that age is a whole number, so we declare this as int. Okay, since we have received the gender and age, okay, we can check both of those, okay, in order to determine our category. So if gender is F, all right, so what would happen if the gender is F? So we need to place whatever the code is inside here. So if it's not F, then we have gender that is M. Okay, so what would happen if it's M? Okay, but if the user enters let's say K or Z, okay, if you want the program to display an error message, you can actually write an else here. So let's say cout wrong gender. Okay, you can write this if you want, but this is optional. Since the question doesn't ask you for this, it's okay if you don't write that. Okay, so if gender equals to F, okay, we know that we need to check for the age as well. So if the age is less than 18, so we know that, okay, cout, it will display a female kid. Okay, so if, so we have another condition, else if, okay, age more than equals to 18, okay, open your braces, so cout, it will write women. Okay, so the same thing goes for gender equals to M. All right, we have if the age is less than 18, okay, all right, we can do cout male kid instead. Okay, so if you notice here, I'm not writing the curly braces because we're only writing one statement here. So if there are more than one, you have to have curly braces. So in this case, since there's only one statement, it doesn't matter if you want to put curly braces or not. So it's up to you. Okay, so we have another else if. All right, so age, if it's more than equals to 18, okay, the display would be man. Okay, so depending on what the user enters as gender and age, it will display the different categories of that user. Okay, and that is how you solve this problem. Okay, so when I give you this problem, it says that write a program that asks the user to input 4 numbers. The program should be able to display the highest number amongst them. So let's say the user enters 4 different numbers. Okay, so if I put in 16, I put in 20, I put in 56, and I put in 30. If we compare these 4 numbers, we know that 56 is the highest number. How do we determine that? Okay, so to put it simply, we must know that each of these are inputs. Okay, so we know that this is, let's say I name this variable as num1, this I name this as num2, this I name this as num3, maybe this I name this as num4. Okay, I know that this is the highest one because num3 is bigger, okay, is bigger than 16, it is bigger than 20, and it is also bigger than 30. So if I give you another examples as well, let's say I put in this is maybe 40, this is 2, this is 38, and this is 15. Okay, so again, if I give you this, which one is the highest number? Of course it's this one. Why is this one the highest number? Because num1 here is bigger than num2, it is bigger than num3, and it is bigger than num4. That is how you determine if a number is the biggest number. Okay, so let's try and do a program for this. Okay, so we know that we need 4 inputs, right? So maybe we can prompt the user first, enter 4 numbers. Oops. Okay, then after that we can ask the user to input the 4 numbers. Okay, so we write num1, so let's say I name them as num1, num2, num3, and num4. So this will take each number separately. So I need to declare these. Okay, since these are integers, so I enter num1, num2, num3, and num4. Okay, so what do we do with these 4 numbers? We know that, let's say we take a look at the previous example that I gave you. Let's say if the first number is the highest number, how do we determine that? We need to check all of these numbers. Okay, so if we want to check something, we know that we need to have if. Okay, so if the first number, okay, we know that if it is bigger than the second number, and also num1 is also bigger than the third number, and okay, you know that num1 is also bigger than the fourth number, then you know that num1 is actually the largest number. So what we can write here, we can write largest equals to num1. Okay, so how do we check if the second number is the biggest number? So we need to check each of these 4 numbers. So again, we will have another condition. If num2, if it is bigger than the first number, and it is bigger than the third number, and if it's bigger than the fourth number, okay, we know that the largest now is num2. Okay, so again, the same thing we need to check for the third number. If the third number is bigger than the first number, and the third number is bigger than the second number, and the third number is also bigger than the fourth number, okay, we know that the largest now is num3. Okay, so if it's not num1, if it's not num2, and if it's not num3, of course we know that it will be num4. Okay, or you can write the condition if you want. Okay, it doesn't matter. So you know that if num1 is the biggest, is bigger than 2, num3, and num4, of course, this is the biggest number. If num2 is bigger than num1 is bigger than num3 and bigger than num4, then of course the largest num2, and for num3 it is bigger than num1 and num2 and num4, and if it's not any of these, of course the largest would be num4. So in the end, what we can do is we can just display, so C out the highest number is largest. Okay, and that is how we solve this problem. Okay, the question says, write a program for a wage calculation system that can be used by Ali Trading Company. The program should read the name of the employee, the number of working hours, and the hourly pay rate. In the end, the program should display the name of the employee along with or her total pay for a month. So as we all know, each employee will have different total number of hours that they work. So depending on the number of hours, they are either an employee that gets paid with a regular pay, or they are underworked, or they are working overtime. So we need to determine that. We need to determine their pay actually. So the first thing that we need to do for this program, if you take a look at the console there, let us try and follow the format. So the first thing is we want to display Ali Trading Company. Okay, and then we need to have an end line, so C out. So just put in dash 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 dash. Okay, and then another end L. Okay, then after that we write C out, enter employee's name, because this is the input that we want. Okay, so since it's an input, we need a C in. So since it's a name, we know that we need to get the whole line, so get line C in name. Okay, so since we're using a variable called name, we need to declare it, so string name. Okay, then after that, the next input that we need is the working hours, so enter the number of working hours. Okay, so again, this is a CN, so CN we'll just put in hours. Okay, so again we need to declare this, so I'll declare it as integer since it's a whole number. Okay, and then after that we need to get another input, which would be the hourly rate. C out, enter the hourly rate, which would be in RM. Okay, and then we have a C in because that's an input. So let's say they put in 7 ringgit 50, and that is the pay rate, the rate. Okay, so since it would be 7 ringgit 50, so that is in float, so we write that float rate. Okay, then after that we got all the inputs, so the next thing we need to do is just do the process. So if it's, how do we determine whether the employee is regular, underworked, or overtime? So we need to determine that based on the hours. So if the hours, okay, is between 128 and 160 hours per month, that person will get a regular pay. So since it's a between, so it must be more than equals 1 to 8, and hours is less than equals to 160. Okay, so we know that it will get a regular pay. So pay equals to rate times hours. Okay, then after that, okay, for the people who is, so this is for underworked, regular. Okay, for the people who is underworked, okay, we know that if they are underworked, the hours that they work will be less than 1 to 8, because regular employee works between 1 to 8 and 160. So if it's less than 1 to 8, so we know that the employee will, the pay will be deducted by 5%. So again, we need to calculate the regular pay that it works. that he or she works. So since the pay will be deducted, so of course the pay will be less. So you know that, okay, the pay will be deducted by how many percent? 5%. So 5% is 0.05. So 5% of what? 5% of the pay. So times pay. Okay, so the whole regular pay, it will be minus the deduction of 5% of that pay. Okay, then if the person is it works overtime, so hours of course will be more than 160. So this is for the employee who works overtime. Okay, but the condition for overtime, it says here, employee that works more than 160 hours per month will be given extra pay depending on the extra hours worked. So we need to know the extra hours that they're working. So first of all, we know that, okay, if they don't work overtime, this is the pay equals to rate time hours is their regular pay. Okay, but since they work overtime, we need to know how many hours that they work overtime. Okay, so how to determine that? We know that it comes from hours. Let's say the user enters, let's say 200 hours. So 200 hours would mean it is more than 160. Okay, extra hour equals 2 hours minus 160. Okay, and then of course we know that the pay equals to the extra hours, so pay equals to pay, okay, plus, since they will get an extra pay since working overtime, so the extra hour times 7 ringgit 50. Since every hour that is an extra hour will get paid 7 ringgit 50 per hour, okay, for the overtime rate. So that is how you calculate that. So again, I repeat, pay equals to rate times hours is the regular pay that they get, okay, the regular pay, and then extra hours is how many hours that they work. Okay, so extra hour. All right, so since we know for each extra hour, okay, they will get 7 ringgit 50, so that's why times 750. All right, so pay equals to pay plus extra hour plus 750. Now this is you can't exactly do rate times hours here, because if you do rate times hours, the hours that they work is, let's say we say it's 200 right earlier. Okay, so we can't times it by 200, we need to times it by 160, because the regular pay is maximum hour is 160. So we know that hours, okay, rate times 160, so they will get the maximum regular pay. Okay, so from the maximum regular pay, which is times by the regular rate, okay, and then for the extra hour that they're working with, they will get the extra 7 ringgit 50 per hour. All right, so in the end, all we need to do is just display everything. So C out employees wage and L, okay, C out dash and L, C out, okay, employees name. Okay, so how do we get the name? We get it from the input earlier, so name and L. Okay, so C out total pay for a month, RM, So how do we get that? Of course, we got it from the calculation that we did earlier, so which would be the pay. Okay, so we need to declare everything. So we use name, we've declared that. Hours, we've declared that. Rate, we've declared that. Pay, we haven't declared since we're calculating it in a floating point. So this needs to be pay. Okay, the extra hour, okay, we also use here. So this will be in integer, extra hour. All right, so yeah, so basically this is how you will answer this particular question.